LiberalViewer presents.
So, welcome to the June 12th edition of LiberalViewer Monday Media Mixup. Thanks for joining me. I'll be using the 9 best, most newsworthy clips I picked out from the Sunday morning news analysis shows from the Big 5 corporate outlets of ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, and Fox News, the so-called corporate media here in the United States, for which should be a really educational, informative, fair use media criticism and political commentary show for you all today. Although Meet the Press took the day off on Sunday. Not like it was a big news week or anything, but they were preempted for the French Open, even though Chuck Todd made a big deal of saying, like, whoever sits in this chair, even after I'm gone, if it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press, which, as I pointed out, and I always point out, is a lie, and they proved it again this Sunday. And speaking of liars, our former President Donald Trump got a huge federal indictment, and unlike the New York indictment, you may remember before the weekend there was news of the indictment, but we had to wait till the Tuesday arraignment to actually read the indictment, and so I did like a special media mix-up of the indictment or the arraignment day, which I won't have to do this time because we've already got to read the indictment. If you go down in the video description under sources, I put a link. I downloaded the full indictment from the Southern District of Florida website, and I uploaded it to my own website so you can read the whole 49 pages. It's actually pretty easy to read. It tells a story. It's pretty compelling. And I'm going to take one of my political comedy clips is actually a paragraph from the indictment that I was not covered on any of the Sunday morning news analysis shows. But before I get to that, I have a video. Once again, I have double political comedy for you on my Trump indictment topic. The first political comedy I want to show you is the way the Trump indictment was covered on the first supposedly straight news program on Fox News every morning. This is Friday morning before the indictment was released, but when Trump himself announced on his Truth Social that he was going to have to turn himself in to Miami federal court on Tuesday at 3 p.m., that's tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern time now. Well, what do you think the first words on the coverage of the story from Fox News' supposedly straight news anchor, Bill Hemmer? Do you think it is framing it the way that Republicans want to frame it? And in fact, you'll see they start off even specifically saying they're framing it the way Republicans want to frame it. And why are they doing that? Well, of course, if you've read Gabriel Sherman's book, The Loudest Voice in the Room, about how Roger Ailes created the Fox News channel to be a propaganda outlet for the Republican Party, you know, that's the whole point here. They're trying to frame it the way that the Republicans want it framed, and it's the most ridiculous. This is so comical that Republicans are claiming there's a 2-tier justice system, and it's like old, rich, white Republicans. They're the ones in the second tier. And I'll talk about that a little more after we watch that first political comedy clip together over here.
Nice. Good show. Good morning, everybody. 2 tiers of justice. That is the refrain on behalf of Republicans. This is Donald Trump becomes the first former president indicted by the government that he used to run. Wow. Good morning, everybody. Dana's got the day off today on a Friday. I'm Bill Hemmer. Good morning to you at home. Hello there, partner.
Hello,
how are you? Nice
William
to see you.
Hemmer. And it's nice to breathe a little more freely here in New
I
York
like that,
City this
yeah.
morning.
The winds change.
It's good to be with you, Bill. I'm Sandra Smith. This is America's Newsroom. The former president confirming last night the DOJ has indicted him. The charges stem from the mishandling of classified documents at his Mar-a-Lago resort.
So that indictment is under seal for now, but we know well, according to the attorneys for Donald Trump, there are at least 7 counts. Among them, obstruction and conspiracy.
Prosecutors have ordered the former president to appear in federal court Tuesday in Miami. Meanwhile, Trump's allies and attorneys are blasting these charges as politically motivated.
I will say, if the president in power can just jail his political opponents, which is what Joe Biden is trying to do tonight, we don't have a republic anymore.
I can also say that there is a 2-tier system of justice that we are seeing right now. So when your name is Donald Trump, when you're leading in the polls, you are going to get hit hard. You are going to get indicted until you can't take it anymore.
But this is a pattern. of the FBI not investigating anything with respect to Biden.
On that last point, all of this unfolding as bribery allegations grow louder against the sitting president. The FBI finally allowing members of Congress to view a document at the center of what's considered a Biden scandal. All right, here we go. Alexis McAdams reports on the Republican.
What's considered a Biden scandal, that somehow that news story ended up with a Biden scandal. I mean, only Fox News could come around to like, oh, these like this Biden scandal bribery charges, which is this total recycled story from the first Trump impeachment about Biden when he was vice president firing Viktor Shulkin, this corrupt prosecutor in Ukraine. Republicans say because he wouldn't prosecute the corruption in Burisma, where Hunter Biden had a seat on the board. But of course, Viktor Shulkin was fired because he was corrupt, which was proven by all sorts of testimony in the first Trump impeachment. But they're trying to like make it seem like it's a new story when it's an old story that has nothing in it. And they're seemingly doing it just to try to make a counterpoint to this terrible Trump story where the indictment is so much worse than he admitted on tape. I'll be talking about this a little bit later. He admitted in a recording that he didn't declassify the information when he was president. It's secret. He could have declassified it, but he didn't, and it's a secret now, and I'm showing it to you, person who doesn't have authority to see it. Although I'll also explain to you why the whole classification debate doesn't really matter. But before I get to any of that, and before I get to the newsmaker clips and the news summaries, including Bill Barr, Trump's former attorney general, on Fox News Sunday, saying something that's true, saying true things about the Trump indictment, which is a big surprise from Bill Barr. If you've been watching my clip roundups or media mix-ups for the last 7 or 8 years, you remember when the Mueller report came out, and actually that's one of the criticisms I'll have of Fox News when I get there, that Shannon Bream, of course, let Bill Barr get away with totally downplaying what was in the Mueller report, but that's a huge tangent that I don't want to get off on now. What I did want to mention, though, was this whole two-tier system of justice thing. That the idea that it is old, rich, white Republicans who are in the second tier of our justice system is just ridiculous. One person who's a darling of the right now, Matt Taibbi, who did some of the Twitter files, and he wrote a book called The Divide. I actually did a book review of this book along with along with the new Jim Crow over here, both of which are kind of about our two-tier justice system. And guess what? It's not old, rich, white guys who are in the second tier. It's poor people, and especially poor people of color who are in that second tier who don't get justice in this country. And for Republicans to take that up as their rallying cry here, that is especially comical. It's ridiculous. Oh, and I was pointing this way because A Colony in a Nation, this book by Chris Hayes, MSNBC anchor of All In with Chris Hayes, he also showed in a great book how there are certain people who live in this country who have a whole different brand of justice, and it's not old, rich, white Republicans. Trust me on that. So that was a ridiculous claim, and how America's Newsroom on Fox News could lead with that and still be supposedly straight news, I don't see it, but I haven't seen it in a long time. You can let me know what you think in the comment section. One other, before I get to the news summaries, there was this one paragraph in the indictment. This may be because I'm a former criminal defense attorney, a former trial lawyer, and I'm just there's something in the indictment I'm picturing demonstrating for the jury in a jury trial that I just find so amusing. And it was not covered on any of the Sunday morning news analysis programs, the 4 that were broadcast on Sunday. It's this paragraph here, paragraph 66, where Trump Attorney 1 discussed what to do with this folder full of classified documents that he found. And this is after Trump moved a bunch of the boxes so his own attorney couldn't find most of the classified documents. But so he's discussing what to do with this red-weld folder containing documents with classification markings and whether Trump Attorney 1 should bring it to his hotel room and put it in the safe there. During that conversation, Trump made a plucking motion. That's the plucking motion. That's the thing that it's going to be so fun to demonstrate to the jury. A plucking motion. As memorialized by Trump Attorney 1, he made a funny motion as though, well, okay, why don't you take them with you to your hotel room, and if there's anything really bad in there, pluck it out. But he didn't say pluck it out. He just made a plucking motion. That was the motion he made. He didn't say that, but it was a plucking motion. That I found, that was like, for me, I mean, it's a very serious case involving the possible dissemination or the allowing access. I mean, the way the classified information and national defense information was strewn about Mar-a-Lago, it could have easily been accessed by who knows who, and people might have even died because of that. Because of sources and methods and all that stuff. So I'm not like making light of the charges. They're very serious charges, but they're definitely some really amusing antics in the indictment, and that one, the plucking motion, I had to share with you. And now I'll get to the news summaries. The longest news summary this week, I guess, to make up for last week when Margaret Brennan said, so let's get to the news, or let's get to it. Lots of things, so let's get to it. Or there was like no news summary last week from CBS News Face the Nation. John Dickerson is in for Margaret Brennan this week, and I don't know, I think they're a little heavy on the Republican response, but you can let me know what you think after we watch that longest news summary together from CBS News' Face the Nation yesterday over here.
Good morning and welcome to Face the Nation. Margaret is off. I'm John Dickerson. We find ourselves once again sorting and explaining the challenges to the American system following the actions of former President Donald Trump, for which there is no previous example in American history. Last week's news. For the first time in history, a former U.S. president has been charged with multiple, 37 in this case, federal charges stemming from the investigation into his removal of classified material from the White House and his attempts to hide it from authorities. This is the second time Mr. Trump has been indicted this year. These federal criminal charges are part of a two-pronged investigation being conducted by Special Prosecutor Jack Smith, who is also looking into Mr. Trump's role in the events leading up to the January 6th attack on the Capitol. Smith was named to oversee the investigation following the FBI's seizure of classified documents from Mar-a-Lago in August of 2022. The 49-page indictment outlining the evidence against Mr. Trump is exhaustive in its detail. Prosecutors accuse Mr. Trump of conspiracy to obstruct justice, making false statements, and allege his willful retention of hundreds of classified documents, including some that contain top-secret military plans and information about U.S. nuclear capability and vulnerability. The indictment leaves little to the imagination. It uses photographs of boxes of materials, including the classified documents, stored carelessly in open locations at Mar-a-Lago, including a public ballroom, a bathroom, and spilled over a storage room floor. It cites detailed notes by Trump's attorney, audio tapes of the former president showing classified materials in 2 instances to people without security clearance, noting that, quote, as president, I could have declassified, but now I can't, undermining the former president's public defense that anything he took was automatically declassified.
Our laws that protect national defense information are critical to the safety and security of the United States, and they must be enforced. We have one set of laws in this country, and they apply to everyone.
Flashback to the 2016 campaign when Mr. Trump highlighted the investigation into the misuse of Hillary Clinton's non-secure email server to forward classified emails. Back then, he repeatedly pledged to enforce all laws protecting classified information.
We can't have someone in the Oval Office who doesn't understand the meaning of the word confidential or classified.
Most of Mr. Trump's 2024 rivals and supporters in Congress did not address the substance of the indictment, but complained that it existed at all, declaring it an example of government abuse.
You can't have one faction of society weaponizing the power of the state against factions that it doesn't like, and that's what we've seen.
A few contenders say the actions of Mr. Trump show he should not be president. Former Vice President Mike Pence, who announced his campaign this week, says, wait and see.
We also need to hear the former president's defense. Then each of us can make our own judgment on whether this is the latest example of a Justice Department working in injustice or otherwise.
For Mr. Trump's MAGA faction, there is no otherwise.
If you want to get to President Trump, you're going to have to go through me, and you're going to have to go through 75 million Americans just like me. And I'm going to tell you, yep, most of us are card-carrying members of the NRA. That's not a threat. That's a public service announcement.
On the campaign trail Saturday, former President Trump tried to turn his personal woes into a campaign message.
I put everything on the line. I will never yield. I will never be deterred. I will never stop fighting for you. Never.
So, yeah, that is the news summary from CBS News Face the Nation. And then they actually go to their reporter, Robert Costa, for even more coverage. I thought they did pretty good, extensive coverage. I'm not sure. I mean, I guess it's both political and legal, so it kind of makes sense to look at the reaction of the Republican candidates. But I do appreciate the detailed look at what's in the indictment, which is also in the ABC This Week with George Stephanopoulos news summary from George Stephanopoulos and Pierre Thomas. I'm about to show you one thing I wanted to mention. Maybe I didn't make this clear. I'm looking at some of the live comments, but you know, an indictment is just allegations. It's what the government claims, and it has to be proven in court. I am, as a former criminal defense attorney, I'm always skeptical of what the government is claiming. Although in this case, I was a federal public I was a law clerk for the Federal Public Defender's Office for a couple of years when I was in law school, and I wouldn't want to underestimate the power of the U.S. Attorney's Office, or in this case, the special counsel. They have a very high conviction rate, mostly through guilty pleas, but even at trial, they have a very high conviction rate. And I would assume that if they're going to be seeking an indictment of the former president of the United States, that they would have very strong evidence to back it up. But he is presumed innocent, and he may have defenses, and we have to wait to hear the defense side of the argument. But I'm just talking about the indictment itself is so detailed and asserts that there's evidence of all sorts of problems, national defense information that he retained without and obstructed justice, he lied about having them, had the boxes moved around by his personal valet, Walter, what is it, Neruda? Or no, I'm not pronouncing that correctly, I don't think. But no, it's Walter Nada, I think is how you pronounce his name, Nada. And I'm putting like an extra R in there for no reason. But I'm going to get to the next news summary, which George Stephanopoulos and Pierre Thomas also do a pretty good job of talking about what's in the indictment, much more so than on Fox News Sunday, which comes next. And I'll talk about that a little more after we watch the ABC This Week with George Stephanopoulos news summary from yesterday together over here.
Good morning and welcome to This Week. 1 year from today, there's a decent chance that Donald Trump will be sitting in a courtroom as a criminal defendant. There's a decent chance he'll be set to accept the Republican nomination of President of the United States. And there's a non-zero chance that he could be both, a criminal defendant and the GOP nominee. Now, none of this is normal, but that's the surreal world we are living in today, now that Trump is the first former president to face criminal charges from the federal government, his second criminal indictment in the last 3 months. We're going to analyze all the angles of this unprecedented legal and political story this week. Chief Justice Correspondent Pierre Thomas starts us off. Good morning, Pierre.
George, good morning. The special counsel was under enormous pressure after news broke that Trump had been indicted. Trump quickly went on the attack, attacking the prosecution, so the special counsel knew he had to tell the nation why he made such a dramatic move. The U.S. Justice Department taking an extraordinary step, now part of an ongoing presidential campaign in a deeply divided nation. Sources telling me special counsel Jack Smith felt he had no choice but to take action against former President Trump for allegedly mishandling classified documents.
Our laws that protect national defense information are critical to the safety and security of the United States, and they must be enforced. Violations of those laws put our country at risk.
In a sweeping 49-page indictment of Trump, Smith argues that the former president willfully retained documents containing the nation's most sensitive secrets after leaving office. Trump is accused of keeping a breathtaking amount of classified documents, some involving our spies, defense and weapons capabilities, and U.S. surveillance programs. The Justice Department making the case that Trump was cavalier in how he handled the documents. Look at them, stored at Mar-a-Lago, boxed in a ballroom, in a storage room, even in a bathroom next to a toilet.
This is someone who is spitting in the face of the thousands of men and women who put themselves in harm's way every single day.
And the special counsel says that Trump not only took these critical secrets, he actively tried to thwart efforts when he was asked by the government to return them and faced with a federal subpoena, allegedly telling his lawyers to falsely represent to the FBI and grand jury that Trump did not have documents called for, and that his legal team should hide or destroy those very same documents. Prosecutors even saying they've obtained notes from one of Trump's own attorneys. Trump allegedly saying, well, what happens if we just don't respond at all or don't play ball with them? And wouldn't it be better if we just told them we don't have anything here? And perhaps most damaging to the former president, audio recordings from a July 2021 meeting with writers working on a book. That audio capturing Trump's own words on tape, allegedly admitting he still had a classified document outlining a potential plan of attack on Iran. This is secret information. Look at this. The indictment alleges Trump also said, see, as president, I could have declassified it. Now I can't, but this is still a secret. And prosecutors say Trump had a co-conspirator in these crimes. His longtime close aide, Walt Nauta, also indicted, accused of obstruction of justice and of helping Trump hide documents. And the special counsel using Trump's own words from before he was president to point out his hypocrisy.
In my administration, I'm going to enforce all laws concerning the protection of classified information. No one will be above the law.
Trump has maintained that he's done nothing wrong and that he declassified those documents. But so far in court, Trump's attorneys have not identified anyone that Trump told actually about declassifying those documents, George.
Pierre Thomas, thanks. Trump's going to be arrested Tuesday in Miami. Senior investigative correspondent Aaron Katersky is on the scene. Good morning, Aaron.
Yeah, and then they go to Aaron Katersky, but I'm only showing you one of the news reports. I'm not going to go into all the different ones. And then they actually go to their legal panel. One thing Pierre Thomas was talking about whether the stuff was classified or not, but there was very little discussion of the fact that the materials don't actually have to be classified. There's nothing in the indictment that says they're classified. They have to be national defense information important to the national defense. That's what it says in the statute. Actually, Dan Abrams, a ABC legal analyst, says that later in the ABC program. I didn't take that clip, but I will show you a CBS legal analyst, Ricky Kleiman, making that point. And it's an important point for the very bad cross-examination of Jim Jordan by CNN's Dana Bash. I'm going to show in clip 7. By the way, down in the video description, I have short summaries of all my clips. We just watched clip 3. One thing that I thought was good, both in clip 2, the CBS News Face the Nation news summary, and the ABC one is they show that part, like one of the most damning parts of the indictment, where and this leaked before we even knew Trump was going to be indicted. This was like this leak that came out a week before, that apparently basically Trump admits on tape that he committed the crime, it couldn't even be more clear. You can see here from the CBS report we just watched, Trump, see, as president, I could have declassified it. Now I can't, but this is still a secret. And you see kind of that same thing from the ABC. This is secret information. Look at this. See, as president, I could have declassified it. Now I can't, but this is still a secret. Now that is like the whole quote that is like the most damning quote for the retention of documents, where, he's admitting it's classified, which makes it almost like there's no argument that it's national defense information, although, like I was just saying before, it doesn't have to be classified. But those two screenshots would have been very helpful to Dana Bash trying to cross-examine Jim Jordan in the clip I'll show you, clip 7. But I want to show you the last two news summaries here. First, the news summary from the non-news organization, Fox News Sunday. You're not going to see that. I don't believe in the Fox News Sunday news summary you're going to see that quote from President Trump admitting the crime. Instead, they're going to focus much more on Republican reaction, even more so, I think, than CBS did. And I'll talk about that a little more after we watch Shannon Bream, the host of Fox News Sunday, and their reporter, John Serrie, talking about the Trump indictment over in this clip.
Hello from Fox News in Washington. You are now looking live at Palm Beach. That's in Florida, where former President Trump allegedly stored boxes of classified documents in varying rooms at his Mar-a-Lago estate. Some of the contents of those boxes are at the center of a new federal indictment. It comes just over 2 months after the other indictment of the former president on state charges in New York. Trump is accused of mishandling and at times sharing highly sensitive materials. He's also accused of hiding his possession of the documents when he was asked to return them. Right now, he is the Republican presidential frontrunner. This Tuesday, after a weekend on the campaign trail, he will appear in a Miami courtroom. In a moment, we'll talk about what comes next with Alina Habba, one of the former president's lawyers. She's not counsel in this Florida case, but is a close advisor who has been by the president's side in recent days. But first, let's turn to Jonathan Serrie, who joins us live from Miami, where we will soon see the former president in court. Jonathan?
That's right, Shannon. Former President Trump posted on social media that he has been summoned to appear at this federal courthouse in Miami Tuesday afternoon at 3 p.m. Speaking at state GOP conventions in Georgia and North Carolina Saturday, Mr. Trump lashed out against the Justice Department and accused Democrats of using the DOJ to suppress his political ambitions.
The ridiculous and baseless indictment of me by the Biden administration's weaponized Department of Injustice will go down as among the most horrific abuses of power in the history of our country.
The former president has been indicted on 37 counts related to the alleged mishandling of classified White House documents stored in various locations around his Mar-a-Lago estate in Palm Beach, Florida, some containing sensitive information on U.S. military capabilities and strategy. In one incident at Mr. Trump's golf club in Bedminster, New Jersey, prosecutors allege during an audio-recorded meeting with a writer, a publisher, and 2 members of his staff, none of whom possess a security clearance, Mr. Trump showed and described a plan of attack from the Department of Defense. According to the indictment, Trump also said, as president, I could have declassified it, and now I can't, but this is still a secret. Shannon, Mr. Trump says even if he is convicted, he will continue to run for president. He tells Politico, quote, I'll never leave. Shannon?
Jonathan Serrie reporting in Miami. Jonathan, thank you. Joining us now, one of the former president's attorneys and confidants, Alina Habba. We should note she...
Oh, I'm sorry. I stand corrected. Fox News, Jonathan Serrie did show that damning recording about Trump saying that I could have declassified it, now I can't. They didn't really talk as much about the obstruction of justice, the hiding. That's the part that I was going to criticize the Fox News Sunday report for, not showing the same thing you saw from like CBS and from ABC there. I could take a screenshot of what Jonathan Serrie just showed, but It's not quite as clear as they as the transcript from the other two networks, but it's still there. Just not as much on the obstruction of justice, the moving around of the boxes, and a lot more on the Republican response. And then to finish up the news summaries here is CNN State of the Union, Dana Bash, doing a just 90-second news summary that I think touches on the important points before getting to Jim Jordan, where Dana Bash kind of crashes and burns, as I'll show in the second newsmaker clip after I show Bill Barr. But anyway, here's Dana Bash giving the introduction, the news summary from CNN State of the Union, including what is the State of the Union this week, over in this clip.
Hello, I'm Dana Bash in Washington, where the state of our union is once again in uncharted waters. This weekend, a defiant Donald Trump is once again preparing to appear in court, this time on Tuesday in Miami, where the former president will face 37 federal counts over mishandling classified documents and obstructing an investigation after he left office. At campaign events on Saturday, Trump lashed out at the Justice Department and predicted the charges would only help his standing as the GOP frontrunner.
The baseless indictment of me by the Biden administration's weaponized Department of Injustice will go down as among the most horrific abuses of power in the history of our country.
It is an extraordinary situation. The first ever U.S. president under federal indictment who could stand trial in the middle of his reelection campaign against a sitting president. The charges against Trump range from willful retention of national defense information to obstruction. And the indictment unsealed on Friday is detailed and stark, accusing Trump of illegally keeping highly classified government documents on America's nuclear secrets and military vulnerabilities, among others, in unsecured areas of his resort, and conspiring with an aide who is also charged to hide some of those boxes from his own lawyers to prevent them from fully complying with a federal subpoena. Here with me is the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Jim Jordan.
And I will show you like over 5 minutes of that interview with Jim Jordan, where Dana Bash doesn't do a great job of cross-examining him. That news summary was okay. I mean, it was the briefest one. I don't know which one you think was best. I think maybe it was the ABC one, except for the part where Pierre Thomas was talking about whether the information was classified, when it doesn't really matter if it was classified, although there is plenty of evidence that it was classified, which just makes it even more likely to be national defense information that you cannot willfully retain, and certainly can't disseminate or obstruct the reclaiming of by the federal government. And that's why the indictment looks so damning. But you don't have to take my word for it. You can take the word of Bill Barr, who I don't agree with on a lot. And I don't even know exactly why he's doing this. I mean, he totally downplayed the stuff that was in the Mueller report. In fact, one of my biggest criticisms of this supposed cross-examination by Shannon Bream on Fox News Sunday of former Trump attorney Bill Barr in this next clip is that she's really only cross-examining him from the right, never really asking him, well, you know, if you think this obstruction of justice by Trump was so bad in this case, what about all the instances of obstruction of justice that were found in the Mueller report that you decided shouldn't be prosecuted? What was that all about? Because this same kind of behavior that Trump engaged in this case, where he tried to like stonewall and lie to and misdirect, all of that was in the Mueller report. That's the same thing that Trump did. There were like 10 instances, 6 of which Mueller was saying he would have prosecuted if Trump hadn't been president, and couldn't be prosecuted in this like obtuse language that made it hard to understand. But he was like really saying he's guilty, but I can't prosecute him because he's president. That was kind of what was in the Mueller report. Never mind that there was a lot of evidence of collusion, just not like a prosecutable criminal conspiracy between the Trump campaign and Russia. But as I pointed out many times, Donald Trump Jr. in June 2016 met with Russians in Trump Tower and asked for dirt on Hillary Clinton. That's collusion with Russia, even if it may not be prosecutable under our campaign finance laws. Paul Manafort gave Trump polling information to Konstantin Kilimnik, who was a Russian intelligence officer. That's certainly collusion, even if it's not prosecutable criminal conspiracy. And then, of course, Roger Stone coordinated the release of the material hacked from the DNC by the Russians through WikiLeaks, coordinated with the Trump campaign, but that's not prosecutable because of First Amendment publisher, the journalists as publishers can't be prosecuted. And so Roger Stone coordinating with the journalist publisher WikiLeaks entity can't be prosecuted, but it's still collusion. So there was plenty of collusion here that Shannon Bream never cross-examines and never asks about all the obstruction that the Mueller report found, even though Bill Barr is saying a lot of things about the indictment of Donald Trump that are true in this next clip, but now I've sufficiently pre-criticized it so that he shouldn't get is he trying to rehabilitate his reputation? Because this doesn't do it. And I'll talk about that a little more after we watch Bill Barr on Fox News Sunday, at least saying some things that are true to Fox News Sunday viewers over in this clip.
What about this chief argument that comes up for the president's allies and his legal team that this should have been handled under the Presidential Records Act, not this Espionage Act charge and other federal statutes that were used here?
Well, it started out under the Presidential Records Act and the archives trying to retrieve documents that Trump had no right to have. But it quickly became clear that what the government was really worried about were these classified and very sensitive documents. I was shocked by the degree of sensitivity of these documents and how many there were, frankly. And so the government's agenda was to get those, protect those documents and get them out. And I think it was perfectly appropriate to do that. It was the right thing to do. And I think the counts under the Espionage Act that he willfully retained those documents are solid counts. Now, I do think we have to wait and see what the defense says and what proves to be true. But I do think that even half what Andy McCarthy said, which is if even half of it is true, then he's toast. I mean, it's a very detailed indictment. And it's very, very damning. And this idea of presenting Trump as a victim here, a victim of a witch hunt, is ridiculous. Yes, he's been a victim in the past. Yes, his adversaries have obsessively pursued him with phony claims. And I've been at his side defending against them when he is a victim. But this is much different. He's not a victim here. He was totally wrong that he had the right to have those documents. Those documents are among the most sensitive secrets that the country has. They have to be in the custody of the archivist. He had no right to maintain them and retain them. And he kept them in a way at Mar-a-Lago that anyone who really cares about national security, their stomach would churn at it.
So you see this as different and separate from what he would term the Russian hoax, what we saw from the Durham report. You see these as two totally separate tracks.
Yes, because in the Russian, there was nothing. There was no problem or issue underlying the Russiagate claim. It was an effort to knock him out with a false claim. Here, I think the government acted responsibly. They gave him every opportunity to return those documents. They acted with restraint. They were very deferential to him, and they were very patient. They talked to him for almost a year to try to get those documents, and he jerked them around. They finally went to a subpoena, and what did he do? According to the government, he lied and obstructed that subpoena. And then they did a search, and they found a lot more documents. And they're not even, I don't think they're even sure now whether they have everything. So they acted in a very patient way, and what they were met with was, according to the government and the indictment, very egregious obstruction.
Let me ask you this and clarify, because the Justice Department has wanted to say over and over again, this is not something Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, was involved in. This is the special counsel, Jack Smith, has complete autonomy, makes these own decisions. But in a case of this import, and with a special counsel statute, would this have to go to the Attorney General for some kind of review or decision-making process before this indictment happens and goes public?
Well, under the regulation, the call can be made just by the special counsel, but I'm sure they had worked out an agreement whereby he would keep the attorney general in the loop, and if the attorney general had strong feelings, he'd voice them. But I think the attorney general said pretty early on he would be guided by the recommendation of the counsel. And we can't forget here that this entire thing came about because of reckless conduct of the president. If he had just turned over the documents, which I think every other person in the country would have done, they're the government's documents. They're official records. They're not his personal records. Battle plans for an attack on another country or Defense Department documents about our capabilities are in no universe Donald J. Trump's personal documents. They are the government's documents.
What about the arguments they'll say, okay, when it came to President Obama leaving, or, President Biden was vice president when some of these.
And yeah, then they go, Shannon Bream again does cross-examination from the right, all the whataboutism. What about Biden keeping records, or Mike Pence, or, what her emails? You're going to hear her emails is coming back up again this week, like Hillary Clinton, where you remember James Comey came out and said, that she may have been grossly negligent, but they didn't have enough evidence of willful retention. And what is evidence of willful retention? Things like obstruction of justice, or where Trump says he knows he's keeping secrets that he shouldn't be keeping, like, in the transcripts I showed from the news summaries previously. Anyway, I can't disagree with almost anything Bill Barr said about the indictment of Trump this time. I pre-criticized all the stuff he said about all the, he dismissed all the evidence of Russia collusion. I mean, that whole thing was started because, what was his name? Not George Stephanopoulos, George, why can't I remember his name? It's not Stephanopoulos, but it's a Greek name. The dude who was like overheard by the Australian, uh, who was overheard talking about the Trump campaign getting dirt on Hillary Clinton by the Australian ambassador. It's not Stephanopoulos, it's not Snuffleupagus. God, I don't know. Anyone in the comment section get his name? Well, I think you're a little delayed. It takes you like a minute to hear what I'm saying anyway. I'll figure it out during the next clip. And the next clip is pretty bad. I have talked about this previously. Dana Bash kind of crashed and burned on her cross-examination of Jim Jordan, both because she let him get away with claiming that the information had to be classified, and we have to take Trump at his word that he declassified the information when he was president. I take him at his word because, Trump is like known for his honesty and never telling a lie, right? But she doesn't cross-examine him with the whole idea that the information doesn't have to be classified, and I'll show a lawyer, Ricky Kleiman, in the next clip, point that out, that national defense information doesn't even have to be classified to violate the statute. But she also tries to cross-examine him, talking about how Trump himself admitted it was classified, but she doesn't really get the whole quote out. I don't know why she wasn't ready with like a transcript like this or a transcript like this, because she doesn't get to but this is still a secret. And she lets Jim Jordan get away with saying, well, when he says, I could have declassified it, that doesn't mean he didn't. Could have doesn't mean he didn't. And Dana Bash tries to cross-examine him with that quote, but doesn't get the full quote in. But I mean, to her, in her defense, Jim Jordan just he immediately starts yelling, and there's like the whataboutism in here about Hillary Clinton and stuff too. But at one point during this clip, I think CNN even turns his microphone down to decrease his ability to respond by yelling when he's being cross-examined. But anyway, I'll talk about that a little more after we watch that clip together. over here.
The indictment does say, thank you. The indictment does say, as I mentioned, the documents included U.S. defense, nuclear capabilities, potential U.S. vulnerabilities to a military attack. They were kept in unsecure areas like a bathroom, a ballroom, a bedroom. And the indictment says that Donald Trump lied to lawyers, his own lawyers, which resulted in false statements to the FBI so that he could keep those documents. Is all of that, any of that, acceptable to you?
Dana, the standard is clear. The standard is Navy versus Egan, a 1988 case, unanimous decision from the court that Justice Blackmun wrote the opinion, and it said the president's ability to classify and control access to national security information flows from the Constitution. He decides. He alone decides. He said he declassified this material. He can put it wherever he wants. He can handle it however he wants. That's the law. That's the standard. And Jack Smith can do all this 37 different counts and whatever he wants to do, but that doesn't change the standard. The standard that the Supreme Court in a unanimous decision said was that he can classify and he can control access. He has the sole authority.
In this indictment, he states on at least one occasion that he did not declassify the information. When he's showing a document to somebody who doesn't have a security clearance, I might add, he says explicitly that it is classified. He didn't declassify it.
Dana, he has said time and time again he's declassified all this material. This is the most political thing I have ever seen. They've been out to get President. They're indicting President Trump on Tuesday for having material that he declassified that was protected by the Secret Service. And the people who are doing it is the administration, the Justice Department, from his opponent in the upcoming presidential election. I mean, this is as political as it gets. And frankly, Dana, it's part of a pattern. We've seen it time and time again with the president over the last 7 years. They try one thing, then they try another. They've continued to go after him. And I think anyone with common sense can see that.
Okay, this is a very detailed indictment. A couple of things that you just said. Number one, the Secret Service, they are charged with protecting the president. They didn't even know, according to the indictment, that those documents were there. So that wasn't their job. Number two, do you have evidence that the president, when he was president, now former president, actually declassified these documents before he took them?
I go on the president's word, and he said he did. And the Supreme Court said that's what counts. So we can have all the things Jack Smith wants to say, but everyone sees this for the political operation it is. The standard is the standard. I didn't set the standard. The Constitution and the Supreme Court did, and they did it in a unanimous fashion, and it was opinion written by Justice Blackmun. So that's the standard. That's the fact. Jack Smith can write whatever he wants, but this is so political. In 2016, I mean, every election we've now seen this, Dana. 2016, it was a dossier that they used. They knew it was false. They used it to go get a warrant to spy on his campaign. 2018, it was the Mueller investigation.
Okay.
2020,
let me just
Biden
stop you.
laptop story with the 51 former intel officials. 2022.
Let me stop you right there, sir. First of all, I want to go back to just one of the things that you
said. Now they're indicting him before the 2024 presidential race.
July 21st.
Every single election, they've done something.
On July 21st, a recording of a conversation that he had said, quote, as president, I could have declassified it, talking about a document he was holding. Now I can't. That means it wasn't declassified. But I want to move on to what's in this indictment. I'm sure you've seen the photos from the indictment. I'm sure you've seen the photos from the indictment.
The same as saying he didn't.
There are classified documents in the bathroom, in a ballroom stage, and classified information that we're talking about. Information that the United States shares with its allies, critical information, strewn on the floor. Does that look secure to you?
Again, Dana, the standard is the standard. The President of the United States, he can classify and he can control access to national security information however he wants. That's the standard. That's the Constitution. That's what the court said in Navy versus Egan, a 1988 case. I don't know how many more times I can say it. Okay, so if he wants to store material in a box in a bathroom, if he wants to store it in a box on a stage, he can do that. That is just what the law and the standard is. So again, I think this just underscores how political this whole thing is. Jack Smith I mean, you know how political it is when they selected Jack Smith as a special counsel. I actually said in a deposition with Jack Smith, we deposed him on May 29th, 2014, because he was looking to prosecute people who were targeted by Obama's IRS, people Lois Lerner was going after.
Sir,
we actually had to depose Jack Smith.
You can keep talking about this. I want to talk
Garland
about the
picks.
substance of this indictment. I want to talk about the alleged obstruction in the
what the standard
indictment.
is.
I want to talk about the alleged obstruction in this indictment.
So, yeah, you saw there Jim Jordan trying to make this claim that the president has total declassification authority, and I take Trump at his word that he declassified the information. And Dana Bash tried to cross-examine him with Trump being caught on tape saying he could have declassified it, but he didn't. Or, you know, I could have declassified it, but now I can't. And this is a secret. But she didn't get the "this is a secret" part. She should have had that, like, transcript ready to go to show him, like there was in the CBS News summary or the ABC News summary, or as I mistakenly forgot, but now I'm pointing out, it was even in this Fox News Sunday news summary. Not quite as clear, but I can't, you know, but this is still a secret. It's weird that it's a little bit more abbreviated, but Dana Bash did not do a great job cross-examining Jim Jordan on what the indictment claims he said. And then also, it doesn't even have to be classified material. That was something, like I said, Dan Abrams pointed out on ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos in a clip I'm not showing you. And then also Ricky Kleiman, a former federal prosecutor or former prosecutor and a current defense attorney. This is her reaction to the indictment on CBS News' Face the Nation, talking about how detailed it is and damning it is, kind of like what you heard from Bill Barr. Oh, and by the way, in the live comments, George Papadopoulos was the guy who was overheard by the Australian ambassador talking about how Trump was trying to collude with the Russians, and that's what started the whole investigation of Trump. It wasn't the Steele dossier that was originally paid for by Republicans, but then the payment for that was taken over by the Hillary Clinton campaign through her lawyers, and that whole like rabbit hole can of worms or whatever. But and there was like some wrongdoing. There was like one prosecutor who lied on an application for a warrant for Carter Page, and I've talked about that many times before, about like, as a former criminal defense attorney, I am not in any way shocked that a prosecutor or a cop lies on a application for a warrant. That happens all the time, and in the Pfizer warrants where there's like no most of it's secret, I'm not surprised at all. But that's not why the investigation happened into Trump. It was George Papadopoulos. Just Google George Papadopoulos. You can find out everything about that if you want to. And then the next clip also is debunking the whole classified information declassified by Trump, you know, using his Jedi mind tricks or whatever. He can declassify information with his mind when he's president, apparently, but it doesn't matter because it doesn't have to be classified, which is contained in this answer from Ricky Kleiman over here.
So what stands out to you now that you've read this indictment?
I think what stands out, obviously, is the magnitude of detail in this indictment. It's not only that you're dealing with 31 counts under the Espionage Act, which simply means the unlawful, willing retention of classified information or even unclassified information that would hurt the defense of the United States and aid our enemies. It's the detail of a speaking indictment. We have to remember that much of this indictment, John, is to educate not only ultimately a court and jury, but it's really to educate the public. Much of this indictment, in terms of the detail, may not even come into evidence in terms of what's admissible or not in the course of a trial. What also strikes me, John, is the overwhelming detail leaves the Trump legal team with real need to have powerful motions to dismiss. Because if this goes to trial, the way it reads, it's rather overwhelming for anyone to be able to fight it on the facts themselves.
And now I want to get to that.
So yeah, that's a good analysis. I mean, the one other thing I would point out, it is hard to fight on the facts themselves, but all Trump needs is one juror who does not want to convict Trump, who believes, you know, the bluster, I don't know if Trump would actually testify in his own defense, because I mean, maybe in this case he would, because that is his like one possible way of getting out of this is winning one juror who refuses to convict, and that creates a mistrial, and then they'd have to try it again, and then maybe he can be president again and pardon himself or whatever. I do agree with Ricky Kleiman that the statute doesn't require information to be classified for it to be a felony to willfully retain the information. It just has to be national defense information related to the national defense, and you know, harmful if learned by our enemies or whatever. But I basically played that clip as one more criticism of Dana Bash for her poor cross-examination of Jim Jordan. I don't know if the cross-examination of Senator Lindsey Graham is as bad by George Stephanopoulos. I mean, George Stephanopoulos does get kind of drawn into the whataboutism. You know, he used to work for the Bill Clinton presidency, and he knows Hillary Clinton, and so he gets kind of drawn into the but her emails defense, such as it is from Lindsey Graham. But you may remember, like in the end of April, the last time I showed a Lindsey Graham clip on abortion, he was immediately ready to attack CNN's Dana Bash on well, why aren't you talking about how Democrats want to abort babies all the way up to the moment of birth and all, you know, and he was really aggressive. Well, he's 10 times as aggressive with George Stephanopoulos here. He's I think it's a tactic he's decided to employ with the media from now on, especially because the facts he's trying to defend are so bad here. George Stephanopoulos is just trying to get Lindsey Graham to admit that, you know, Trump did something wrong here, and he's saying, you know what's wrong? The two-tier justice system, and, you know, Hunter Biden's laptop and Hillary's emails, and on and on and on, and he's 10 times as aggressive as the last clip I showed of him at the end of April. And this is the final Newsmaker clip that I will talk about with you a little more after we watch. I put in 6 minutes of this just so you can see George Stephanopoulos get distracted and deterred and drawn into the whole Clinton presidency and Hillary Clinton emails. And anyway, it's kind of a mess that I'll talk about with you a little more after we watch it together over here.
Donald Trump has said repeatedly that he did nothing wrong. Do you believe that?
Well, here's what I believe. We live in an America where if you're the Democratic candidate for president, Hillary Clinton, Secretary of State, you can set up a private server in your basement to conduct government business. And when an investigation is had about your activity, no, let me finish.
But you didn't answer the question.
That was ridiculous. Well, yeah, I'm trying to answer the question from a Republican point of view. That may not be acceptable on this show. Yes, I don't like what President Trump did in certain aspects. I don't like that Joe Biden had classified information on the garage. I don't like that Mike Pence carelessly took classified information. I don't like any of that. But what I don't like is a system in America where the Secretary of State, who's a Democratic candidate for president, has people take a hammer to social media devices and break them apart, apply bleach bit to a hard drive to erase emails, allow classified information to get on a felon's computer, Anthony Weiner. You haven't even mentioned that. Most Republicans believe we live in a country where Hillary Clinton did very similar things and nothing happened to her. President Trump will have his day in court, but espionage charges are absolutely ridiculous. Whether you like Trump or not, he did not commit espionage. He did not disseminate, leak, or provide information to a foreign power or to a news organization to damage this country. He is not a spy. He's overcharged. Did he do things wrong? Yes, he may have. He will be tried about that, but Hillary Clinton wasn't. Your old boss committed perjury in a civil lawsuit, lost his law license, obstructed justice in a dozen ways, and he didn't get prosecuted. I know.
And he was
can't
impeached.
stress
Well,
enough.
Senator,
Yeah,
okay,
well, he was impeached, but he wasn't prosecuted.
You've made your point, but you also said something that I believe is not true based on what's in the indictment. You said that he did not disseminate any of this information. In fact, there's an audio tape in the indictment where he's talking about the secret information, saying he knows it's secret, knows it's not declassified.
Okay, let's talk about that. I don't know what happened. I haven't heard the audio, but look at who's been charged under Espionage Act. Julian Assange, Edward Snowden, Chelsea Manning. People who turn over classified information to news organizations to hurt the country or provide it to a foreign power. That did not happen here. Donald Trump, you may hate his guts, but he is not a spy. He did not commit espionage. What he did is very similar, in my view, to what Hillary Clinton did. People in the Clinton case took a hammer to a BlackBerry and destroyed it. They wiped clean with bleach bit emails. They said they were all personal, but some of them actually were classified, and it wound up on Anthony Weiner's computer, and not a damn thing happened to her.
Senator, first of all, she was fully investigated. They found the investigation found no intentional holding back. Well, fine. Donald Trump was president for 4 years. He had his Justice Department in place for 4 years. But setting that aside, there is an audio tape of Donald Trump saying he knows this is secret information. He knows he's sharing it with other people. How is that okay?
I'm not saying it's okay. I'm not saying it's okay to take a hammer to a BlackBerry. I think none of this is okay. When Chris Coons, who my good friend will be on in a minute, when we view classified information, we have to sign in, go into a room, and turn it back over. You got vice presidents, secretary of states, and presidents handling this stuff. You had Bill Clinton with tapes in his sock drawer. I would like to review the system, but here's the point I'm trying to make. What's happening in Manhattan to Donald Trump has never happened to anybody in the history of New York. I think the espionage charges are completely wrong, and I think they paint an impression that doesn't exist. This is not espionage. And I do believe, George, that most people on my side of the aisle believe when it comes to Donald Trump, there are no rules, and you can do the exact same thing or something very similar as a Democrat, and nothing happens to you. Here's the bottom line.
Hold on a second. Senator,
the leading candidate for president of the United States on the Republican side is being prosecuted by his opponent.
Had Donald Trump turned over the documents, as Mike Pence did, and you heard our legal panel address that as well, we wouldn't be sitting here today. There would be no case. There would be no case at all.
Well, I don't know if that's true. He believes he has the power to do that. He will argue the Presidential Records Act. I don't know if he's right or not. There'll be a trial about this, but I cannot stress to you enough that we live in a world today where most Republicans believe that Hunter Biden's laptop was real and people knew it was real, but they told the public something else to help Joe Biden. We live in a world where it takes 4 years to investigate Hunter Biden, and you can go after Donald Trump in about 18 months. I know you don't get what I'm saying, but people on my side believe it, and I think Donald Trump is stronger today politically than he was before. I think the espionage charges are ridiculous. I think what happened to Hillary Clinton, where she got away with it, is very similar to what happens to Trump, and we'll have an election and we'll have a trial. But I promise you this, most Americans believe, most Republicans believe, that the law is used as a weapon against Donald Trump.
Well, sir, I've heard that. I've heard your attack on President Biden and his Justice Department. I've heard your attack on Hillary Clinton. I've heard your attack on Bill Clinton. What I've not heard from you is a defense of Donald Trump's behavior and why you think that's the kind of behavior you want to see in a president of the United States.
I'm not justifying his behavior. If it were up to me, nobody would take classified information.
And it just goes on from there where Stephanopoulos points out that Senator Lindsey Graham has endorsed Trump for president, but won't even talk about the behavior he's accused of in the indictment. And it's all whataboutism. What about Hillary? What about Joe Biden? What about Hunter? And and even kind of the two-tier justice system, which I remind you, you can read Matt Taibbi's The Divide to find out that no, it's not rich white Republicans who are in the second tier of our justice system. Or you can also read The New Jim Crow here by Michelle Alexander, or Chris Hayes's A Colony in a Nation. All of those books will explain to you who is really in the second tier of our justice system, not rich white Republicans. But anyway, I pretty much pre-criticized that clip. I mean, George Stephanopoulos did a okay job of cross-examination. I just think he got too drawn into the Hillary Clinton's emails and Bill Clinton's, perjury in a civil suit or whatever, and all the whataboutism that Lindsey Graham showed us, and then Jim Jordan gave us these bogus legal arguments about we're taking Trump at his word that he has the power to declassify anything he wants with his mind just by thinking about it, and which isn't a defense for multiple reasons and is contradicted by him, what he supposedly said caught on tape, if what the indictment alleges turns out to be true. Anyway, that is the end of the live stream. I want to thank all of you for joining me. I did see I got a couple of super chat contributions from Lulu Girl, who was able to show up for the live stream today. I appreciate that. And I appreciate Lulu Girl asking people to give my video a thumbs up. You can subscribe to my channel. There are also a couple links under the video to become a monthly patron on Patreon, to give a one-time contribution through PayPal. If you give at least a $5 contribution, I will send you this ACLU Constitution with a Know Your Rights section in the back, and one of these weatherproof vinyl #LiberalViewer stickers, like you see over my left shoulder. And then I also saw Lulu Girl was asking about new pets. When are we going to get the new pets? I had the Dash and Sandy clips for so many years, and then Sandy died February of last year, and then this week, June 16th, this Friday is the 1-year anniversary of the death of my cat Dash. I've been thinking about that. It's kind of sad. And in that last year, we have replaced all of the floors that were destroyed by our pets, and we just have to do like a deep clean of some rugs. I think we actually might be very close to maybe getting a new kitten sometime this summer. I don't know. It's definitely possible. We've done most of the work. We just need to get a rug cleaning and then go looking for a kitten to rescue at the local shelters. Or it doesn't even have to be a kitten. Could be like a grown cat. I suppose there is the possibility of a puppy, but probably much more likely a cat. But anyway, thank you, Lulu Girl, for those super chat contributions, and I hope I answered your question, even though I was a little bit vague. And anyway, I might have some reason to upload some other video this week, especially with Trump being arrested and arraigned in federal court tomorrow. Since I got to read the indictment, I won't necessarily have to do an extra live stream on that like I did for the New York indictment and arraignment. But whether I have a reason to upload some other video this week, I will be back next Monday and every Monday at least through January 2025 and the transition to the next president or the continuation of Joe Biden's presidency. So until next Monday, or until I have some other reason to upload a video, I guess I will be seeing all of you around the internet.